Yo guys, hope you're good and welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's been a little while since I've been on here doing kind of, shall we say, informative educational stuff because I've had quite a few little competitions going on, as I'm sure you're aware. So I have obviously just done 6 shows in the past sort of 3 months, so it's been pretty hectic. However, what I wanted to maybe kickstart this off with was a helpful informational video about how to travel and how to compete. Thought would be quite relevant, seeing as I've obviously just competed in 4 or 5 different countries over the past few months, traveling around, obviously competing in relative close proximity to each other. So I can give you guys some pretty good first-hand experience on traveling, what the world's like at the moment with regards to COVID. Obviously competing abroad brings its own challenges anyway, but obviously with the COVID situation as well, there are more challenges that kind of come with that. So I'll talk to you I've written some stuff here on my laptop, so I will refer to that. And I've written a few different points here. So what I wanted to start out with was, what do you actually need when you travel? So obviously you need your passport, your travel documents, identification, all that kind of stuff. Now, each country that you travel to does have different entry requirements. So I went to Spain, Poland, Finland, Norway. Each one has slightly different requirements. To be fair, all of those ones are relatively similar. But you have to check whether the country is on an orange list or red list or green list, because then again, that does also affect when you come back to the UK, what you have to do, whether you have to quarantine or whether you do not have to quarantine. So it all gets a little bit deep and a little bit confusing, but one thing I would suggest is check on the UK Gov website for your specific country. Obviously, there's no point me telling you what these specific countries were now, because it might change. So make sure you check that out before you fly. Now, so some of the other documents that you're going to need to get into another country, you're going to need either a negative PCR test done within 72 hours of leaving. Now, some countries require it to be 24 hours. So again, that's why it's important to check. Or you need to have one of the NHS COVID passports which prove that you've been double vaccinated. Okay, so basically showing that you've not got COVID. And then what you also need to have is a passenger locator form. So you can do this at the airport, and this is basically showing the country that you're going into, where you're going to be staying, your points of contact, your reference points and things like that, so that if they do need to contact you when you're in the country, they can do so. And also if you do need to quarantine when you're in that country, they're aware of where you're going to be and where you're going to be quarantining. So that's kind of most of the information on that. Just doubly make sure you check when you fly, because some countries, again, they're not letting you travel for leisure. So for example, when we went to Norway, you're not allowed to travel for leisure there. You have to be traveling for a specific business or a sporting event that is on, a list of events that's sanctioned by the government. So we had an invite from Two Bros to say that we were allowed to compete in a bodybuilding competition. So again, just more stuff to check on. So another thing, when to fly out to a competition. If you're flying out abroad, when's best to fly? So most competitions are on a Sunday with a registration the day before on a Saturday. So technically you could fly out on really early Saturday or Friday. However, I would advise against that, just due to potential, water retention reasons and things like that. And it's always nice to just have that little bit more time, just kind of get settled, find out, where the shops are, where the gym is, all this kind of stuff. However, it can be done. For example, when I went to Poland, I flew out on Friday afternoon, registration was on Saturday morning, and I competed Sunday, and I flew home at 5 a.m. on Monday, in and out job. But again, I will touch on some of the water retention stuff I just mentioned in a minute. But obviously, if you're somebody that works, for example, a 9-to-5 job and you can't get off until Friday, then that would be the only option for you. You fly out on the Friday, register on Saturday, compete on the Sunday. But then it's more important for you to take precautions with regards to water retention and stuff like that, if it is something that does affect you. Most of the competitions that I did this year were within a 2 to 3 hour flight. Now that doesn't tend to affect me too bad. However, and this is my next point, tips on flying, just a couple of tips on flying and avoiding water retention. I find personally, anecdotally from my own traveling experience, when I've got a full stomach or when I've been eating carbs, essentially, or specifically carbohydrates, I find that I do hold water, extracellular water, when I land. And it's a little bit harder to get off. So if you are doing that on the Friday and you're competing on the Sunday, it can be a little bit close. So a tip on flying is that I like to fly eating only pro fats, so protein and fat diet with no carbohydrates. This tends to keep my water retention down pretty much to a minimum, in fact, pretty much to nothing. So like I said, when I went to Poland, I followed this protocol, traveled on pro fats, and also what's really important to note is that I kept my water pretty high as well, so that I was still going to the toilet, the water was flushing out, and I actually landed on Friday with 0 water retention, and I was perfectly on point for the show on Sunday. But again, it's just something to bear in mind if you are competing close to or within a close proximity of when you're flying and you've got to carb load, for example. Like, you don't really want to be carb loading on a flight because you're probably just going to, you're drinking as well, you're probably just going to hold a shit ton of water, and it will affect your look. And of course, if you're in a weight class category like classic, or of course bodybuilding as well, and you're trying to get into a certain weight class, that could definitely affect where you end up, and it could cause you to not make weight and potentially not be able to compete. So again, all stuff that's really important to take on board when traveling. So again, like I said, if you have the time, fly out a little bit earlier. So if you can fly on maybe Wednesday or early Thursday, that would be, in my opinion, perfect. And that's what I tried to do for most of my shows. So moving on to the next thing, what to pack, what to take. So my earlier shows, I definitely overpacked. So from experience now doing 6 so quickly in quick succession, you don't need as much as you think, you really don't. So I would say pack light. When you're there with regards to training, realistically, dependent on your class, like for me, obviously as a bodybuilder, most of my training is going to be done probably before I fly. So if I'm competing on Sunday, I'm not really going to be training on Saturday, probably not on Friday because we're going to be carb loading, potentially carb loading Thursday as well. So maybe get a session in early Thursday if I fly Wednesday, for example. So I may get 1 session in. But obviously if you're a bikini athlete, maybe men's physique, you may be training a little bit close to proximity to the show. So you may need 2, maybe 3 gym outfits maximum. So again, not a lot. And you're probably only going to be wearing, you know, your chill out gym clothes anyway, whilst you're kind of there in the country. So again, you're not going to need too much at all. Obviously, you know, underwear and whatnot, that's a given. So another thing I said to take was obviously your supplements and certain foods that you don't think you're going to be able to get when you get there. Obviously, when you get there, you're going to be able to buy your meat, your veg, you know, things like that. But certain, you know, supplements that you may need when you're there, or food, potentially carbohydrate sources like cream of rice, for example. I always took that with me. My whey, I always took that with me and just weighed it out and put it in my bag. With regards to obviously gear as well and drugs, if you obviously are on a cycle, put it in your, obviously not in your hand luggage, put it in your main suitcase, because obviously they don't really get checked and it's absolutely fine. I don't know if that's like that I'm just saying what I did. I'm not advising anyone else to do it, but that's just what I did to take things around and about. I think traveling to countries like America is a little bit different, so I wouldn't advise on that, but that's the way I got around it. And obviously don't take anything in your hand luggage because it will get checked when you go through security. So on to the next thing, obviously stage wear. So you're obviously going to take the trunks or bikini, whatever it is that you wear on stage, shorts. Tan and skincare. So this is other stuff that I took with me. Obviously, if you're booking a tan with the federation that you're doing it with, then obviously you don't need to take anything. But if you're doing it yourself, then obviously you will need to take it. And also, if you're flying out, say 3-4 days before, you're obviously not going to do your hair removal before you go. So you're going to have to take that with you. I always like to do mine, and this is just me, my personal preference, 2 days out, and then I tan the next day, and that seems to work well for me. So I take all that stuff out with me, and obviously make sure you've done it before, like as a practice, so that you don't just get there, do your hair removal, and you end up with like horrible rashes or whatever. So that's just another little kind of piece of advice. Another one as well, always take, if this is what you do or like to do, one going out outfit. So after the competition, I always like to go out for a meal, have a meal off, and I quite like to, you know, not necessarily dress up, but put a set of jeans on, nice pair of shoes, nice shirt or something, and then go and enjoy the moment with the people that you're with or that you're out there with. And another thing as well, if you're traveling on your own, when you're backstage, I always just try and meet new people because everybody else is of the same mindset when we're competing, and there will more than likely be people there that will happily let you join them for food, post-show food and whatnot. So last thing on where to pack is take a plug socket. For example, if it's a European country, take a European plug socket and then take a UK multi-plug socket so that you can plug in lots of different things. That's a little hack for you right there. Moving on to where to stay. So we always picked either between booking.com or Airbnb, and I always tried to choose, I'd always find out where the venue is and try and choose somewhere relatively close to that, because you don't want to be too far away that, you know, you've got to go and get your tan, then you've got to go and register, so you've got to keep going forward and backwards to these places, and if it's 20 miles, it's going to cost you a lot of money in taxis, or you're going to have to rent a car. So I tried to get somewhere that was always relatively close to the venue, and I found that that was just a really kind of convenient way of going about things. And of course, especially if you're traveling on your own, you don't really want to be renting a car because it's going to be more costly as well. However, if there's like 4 or 5 of you, it might be worth renting a car. Like we did in Finland, there's 5 of us, we rented a car, and the cost of that was minor between the 5 of us. Again, always look for where you're staying, where the gyms are, where the shops are, all that kind of stuff, so that you know when you land or when you get to the apartment, you're more than likely going to be quite easily to go and train if you've got to train, or, you know, go to the shops. You will need to go to the shops, no doubt, because you need to buy your food. So that's always a pretty cool thing to make sure you check up on as well. Now, money and traveling with money. So I never personally use cash. I never go and take cash out. I just don't like using cash. I don't like getting, it's just long. So what I did was I got myself a Monzo card. You can use other travel cards, it's fine, you know, like Revolut or whatever, but I personally have a Monzo card. With these cards, you can obviously load money onto it via your normal bank card. It's super easy via the app, like so easy. And then you use that card like your normal card. You can tap and go. And the cool thing with these is that you don't get charges. So obviously if I was to use, I'm with Lloyds, if I was to use my Lloyds card, you get charged, I don't know, £1, £2, whatever it is, every time you use your card. And you don't realize quite how often you tap and go. You know, when you're in the shops, you buy a drink, buy a bottle of water, whatever it is, it does add up, especially if you're doing multiple shows. So a Monzo card or a travel card, something like that is definitely something that I would suggest, and that helped me a lot. And finally, competing on the day, just make sure you network, like I just said a minute ago, meet people there, and then you can enjoy the post-show period with them. Like I said, if you're traveling on your own, or if you're traveling with a group of people, then obviously that doesn't matter so much. But basically just plan ahead, make sure you know all the details. So go through all that stuff that I've just mentioned, for example, sort out where you're gonna stay, sort out what you're gonna pack, go through, organize where you're gonna sort your flights from, what the times are, all that kind of stuff. So you have it all on your head, have all of your PCR documents ready to go so that you have no stress, no anxiety about traveling, and it's all sorted. And I guarantee if you do that, you can have a stress-free trip, which is obviously what we need for bodybuilding, low cortisol levels, low stress, better look on stage. Anyway, guys, hopefully that helped you out with a little bit of advice for traveling. If there's anything I missed or any questions that you have about it, then please do comment below and I'll make sure I get back to you. Anyway, guys, take it easy. Peace out.